So I'm just gonna kick things off here. Not really sure how to use live video. First time doing this. Just kind of wanted to tell everybody a bit about my story and kind of why I created Travel Peru and this Facebook group. Just a little background on myself. 25 years old. My name is Luke Ferguson. Went to Salem High School, grew up in Windham, New Hampshire, and really just didn't have any interest in traveling until my first trip, which was to Asia back in May of 2015, right after graduating college. So I really just went on that trip. On a whim, I bought a one-way ticket to Beijing, China, and just knew I wanted to see the world and kind of experience solo travel, and was kind of ready to set off on an adventure now that I had a degree in hand and knew I would be entering the work world pretty shortly. So I figured just had some money saved up from working some internships while in college and decided to take the trip. Arrived in Beijing, China at about 1 in the morning and got a cab over to the hostel that I was going to be staying at. I didn't speak any English at all, so it was quite an experience just arriving there, basically knowing ni hao, which is hello, and just showing up with a bag packed and just trying to get the cab ride to the hostel was quite an experience. You walk out of the airport, there was just all these cabbies lined up. All I did was just show him the address that was written down in Chinese on my phone, and kind of just made the guy take me there, and hopefully he wasn't gonna kill me. He parks like when we finally get there, and I look down this alleyway, and I'm like, is this it? And he's yelling at me in Chinese, pointing down the alleyway, telling me, yeah, go down there. When I say like alleyway, I'm talking, this thing was, it was like a New York City alleyway, except it had a street sign. And I'm trying to figure out, is this a normal street, or is this guy just telling me to go down this dark alleyway so somebody's gonna kill me? So I grab my bag, kind of head down the alley. He drives away, and I just keep walking and walking. And I mean, I'm sketching out because I'm walking down this alley. I'm by myself. It's like 1 in the morning. I've never been in Asia in my entire life. I'm completely by myself. Finally, the place I was staying, the hostel, is called the Red Lantern House, I believe, in Beijing, and it turned out to be like a little local neighborhood. But I knock on this red door, and they open it up. It was one of the coolest hostels I've stayed in. It was just very traditional. Had like the Chinese red lanterns all over the place. It was really cool. So I kind of check in, and I get in my room, and just, I mean, I've been on the plane for like a day at this point. So I was beat. Actually, I took all the finals for my college classes all in one day. 2 weeks before graduation, I just kind of skipped the graduation there, and took all my finals in one day, and flew to Asia. And basically within like 48 hours, I'd taken like 5 finals, and hadn't slept for probably like 4 days by the time I'd got there. So I get into this hostel room. I believe it was a couple from Sweden that I was staying with, and it was a 4-person kind of dorm bed just to save money and make my money go for as long as possible. So yeah, kind of that was my experience. First time traveling, getting to a foreign country. It was a hell of a ride over there, and then once I got there, I woke up the next morning and kind of just set off for breakfast and walked all around that entire Beijing for probably 2 weeks, just visiting all the sites and meeting people and grabbing drinks and kind of just getting shown around. Um, then I set off down to Shanghai, China. Uh, Spent some time there. Did a whole bunch of stuff. Just kind of saw that whole city. Um, I ended up getting robbed for the first time for being by myself, and shit happens. Had one too many beers, and got my wallet taken and my credit cards, and started to get some transactions for in the thousands. And I had to call up my bank, cancel one of my credit cards. That was a disaster. Then I was staying at a hostel in Shanghai. I had to convince them to allow my bank to send me a new card, and that was going to take like a week to get there, even expedited. I mean, it's coming from the U.S., so that took a while. Luckily, I had a backup credit card back in my room that I didn't bring out that night, that I could do a cash advance on and kind of get some money without telling mommy and daddy what had happened. I don't want to get those stories back to them, but yeah. So that was my first time being robbed and kind of the whole solo travel thing. Then from there, took a train down to Guangzhou, China, which is the business kind of center, like district, where everything that's made in China kind of goes to Guangzhou. That's where all the wholesalers are, and then you can buy whatever you want, and then it all gets sent to Hong Kong and really just exported around the world from there. So that was China. I mean, that was the first country I'd ever gone to. Just done backpacked the entire thing. I spent about a month and a half there, and then went into Hong Kong. My buddy Josh Fazette actually flew in 4 days after I'd got into Hong Kong. I was staying in a place called the Chungking Mansion. There's actually some books and movies written about the place. If you ever do go to Hong Kong, I highly suggest staying in the Chungking Mansion. It's kind of an expat like entryway. It's an experience. Let's just say that it's kind of that. It's the cheapest place to stay in the entire city. Everything in Hong Kong's really expensive. It's a hostel with about like 18 floors. Every floor is a different hostel. And then what it is it's in some, I don't know if it's a book or a movie, for being the place where you get fake passports made. Because it's kind of the one place where if you're an illegal alien in Asia, that's where you can stay, and they kind of run all these different hustles and scams and sell drugs outside the front and prostitutes outside and this and that, but that's kind of all over Asia as well. So my buddy Josh, I pick him up at the airport, and I didn't tell him where we were staying. I had booked us like, I don't know, 2 or 3 nights at Chungking Mansion. I already had been there for about 4 nights. And he gets off the plane. I pick him up at the airport. We get on a bus. We take it back to Chungking Mansion. I hadn't talked to anybody that was an American in a month and a half. So, I mean, everybody knows Lukey Boy. I'm a big talker. I had a lot to talk about. Didn't really warn him, just told him, hey, like, it's going to be pretty funny when we get off this bus. You're going to get attacked by a lot of Indians and kind of get haggled for rooms and drugs and girls or whatever you're looking for. So let me just give you that warning. And he got off the bus, and it was the absolute funniest thing. Like, I would say a good 40 Indians started attacking him because they see him with the backpack, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna get this guy. He needs a room, obviously. If he has a bag, he's gonna need a room. So they're just all yelling at him and trying to get him to buy a room and grabbing his bag, and we got this whole circle around us, probably like 30, 40 Indian dudes, and all of a sudden this guy just comes out of nowhere because we're trying to get on the elevator, and he's a security guard. He just has a billy club, and he just starts beating all these guys, like, just whacking them in the face, like, beating them good. Like, I'm talking really fucking good. He was beating these guys up. So that was my buddy Josh's first experience in Asia, and I think I might have scared him a little bit, to be honest. So we ended up getting a different place and kind of moving out of Chungking Mansion. Um, and I think obviously he was going through a little bit of culture shock from just the whole experience. But from there we went down to Bangkok, spent some time there, and yeah, we did go to a ping pong party and did kind of the whole Bangkok, Thailand scene, and then explored some of the islands and had a great time in Thailand. Then he went home, and I went on to Cambodia. Cambodia is by far the sketchiest place I've ever been in my entire life. I don't really recommend Cambodia. If you are gonna go, kind of go to Phnom Penh and go up to Siem Reap, which is the temples from kind of Angelina Jolie's Tomb Raider. Go do that stuff, but then I would say just kind of get out of Cambodia. It's I'd say it's the place where like all the criminals from the entire world, when they have no country to go to and they've been extradited or kicked out of every single country in the world, they end up in Cambodia because that's the only country that'll take them. Just kind of a little background, just to like on kind of the poverty there. When I was up in Siem Reap, my girlfriend and I at the time got a room at a fairly nice hotel. I mean, I was trying to get a hotel room, not staying in some crappy hostel in Cambodia. So we get in there, and the guy that was carrying our bags up to our room literally had, I didn't realize it at the time until we had already walked up 4 flights of stairs, but the guy had a wooden leg, and I didn't even notice it and had no idea. But I kind of asked him about it a few days later, and he had told me that he had stepped on a landmine. So, I mean, they're still around there, and people, when you're driving around and looking around and kind of ripping on your motorbike, like, you'll see people with missing limbs and things like that from the Khmer Rouge, like hiding in the jungle and just planting all these landmines, and kids and husbands and whoever's kind of walking around, you can step on a landmine. So it's just a really sad country, a shitload of poverty, the most I had ever seen. Like, I mean, prostitution with people, like girls like 10, 12 years old, just sketchy, weird, bad shit going on in that country. I got robbed there for probably, I would say like $12, definitely under 20. I didn't count it, I'm not sure, but I would always leave with about 20 to go out for the night, and just carry no credit cards. I'd learned that lesson. Don't bring my passport, just walk around with the necessities, which is really just money, and a very small amount of it, because in Cambodia, I mean, what I found out is a life costs about $15-20 there. So yeah, it's just very dangerous. It's I had a gang of kids. What I've also found out is the adult gangs aren't really the ones you want to look out for. It's really the kid gangs that are the scariest, because these little kids, they're just fearless, and they don't give a fuck. And I had I'm very bad with ages, but I want to say like 10 years old. Literally, I'm walking down the beach. It was late at night. Again, I'm all alone, so I kind of deserved it. But I was walking. I had my bathing suit. I had a little Velcro pocket in my bathing suit. I had probably $12 to $15 in there, and I'm just kind of trying to relax and look at the stars and sit on the beach and kind of just think about life and my life. And all of a sudden, these kids come from behind a sailboat and just start rubbing their tummies, and they're like whining, and they're like, "Oh, I'm hungry," or whatever, and they do that there. So I'd seen it before. I'm kind of like, uh, I might be getting this confused, but I want to say it's like no loy is no money. So I was telling him like no money, no money, just not looking at him, not making eye contact. Because I just felt bad for the kids, but I mean, I knew they were just begging for my money, and I mean, you can't just keep giving it out to every single person you see, or then your trip's over. So all of a sudden, the kid just pulls out a 9mm from his waistband and just like holds it up to my face, and he like is just telling me like, "Give me all the money." Um, all these kids were like jumping on me, and I'm trying to like get away, and I'm chasing after him. I mean, like this kid that held up the gun though, like I looked into his eyes, and like I know he's taken lives before. Like you could just see it in this kid's eyes. He's probably 10, 12 years old, and he's definitely he's killed people like either on that beach or I don't know where, but he was like the ringleader of them all. And I just kind of put my hands up. I was like, "Dude, take all the money. I mean, here you go," and just walked away. But I was pretty shaken up after that. It was a pretty scary experience. Um, so I left Cambodia and I went down to Vietnam after that. Took a bus across the border and spent some time in Ho Chi Minh City. Did kind of the Goji tunnels, and then I mean I met this guy and his name is Ali who had biked the entire world, and we had been talking and kind of drinking all night, and he told me about Peru and told me kind of I had to go there, and I'd been traveling for about 3 months at this point, and he just told me that like no matter what I do, I need to go back to the United States, but save up more money and get down to Peru. Um, and he had told me about ayahuasca. So I had told him I had heard about it. I had wanted to try it. Um, but I mean, I didn't know anybody. Never really knew where to get it or um, anything of that nature. But basically, I came back to the United States, spent about a year working, and took my 3 weeks vacation and set off on a journey down to Peru. Um, got there, spent some time in Lima, which is the capital. Walked kind of all around there and went out to some nightclubs and some bars and things of that nature. Hit the beach, did some swimming, then went up to a small town. Me and my buddy Jimmy McCarty got a bus up to this town called Huanchaco, right by a major city called Trujillo, something like that in Peru. We spent about a week there on the beach. I tried surfing for the first time, way harder than I ever thought. Um, yeah, one of the best exercises I've gotten in a long time. And then from there, I got on a plane and went over to Cusco and set off 2 days later on the Inca Trail for 4 nights and 3 days to get to Machu Picchu. So I met a lot of really cool and interesting people from around the world hiking on the Inca Trail over to Machu Picchu, and then finished the trail and went back to Cusco, and I found somebody pretty randomly. I actually was planning on going to the jungles originally up to Iquitos, but didn't have the time and found somebody in Cusco named Joel, who was a spiritual guide. And at first, I wasn't sure if he was legit and if I should choose him as kind of my shaman. So I went around and I kind of shopped around a little bit longer, talked to some other people, some other guides, and some other kind of shamans in the area, And I mean, I just felt like him and I were connecting the best, and I just felt like the other ones I wasn't really vibing with, and I wasn't really sure if I trusted them and this and that, and their companies didn't really seem that legit. So I ended up going back to the original guy Joel, who I had met, and decided to have him take me out about 2 hours from Cusco to an Andean town or village, extremely rural, and I spent what was it, 4 days in this village, and just kind of had the most, like, it's just the most tranquil and peaceful place I've ever been in my entire life. Um, I was on the dieta prior to the Inca Trail, and kind of knowing that I was going to be drinking ayahuasca. One of the key things in doing so is you really do have to follow a very strict diet of no meat, mostly just vegetables and water, no soda, none of these like really just unhealthy things. You really have to kind of think of going into um, an ayahuasca journey as you're curing, healing, and purifying your soul. So you really want to be as pure as possible going into the ayahuasca ceremony. So for me, I was just eating mostly bananas and drinking water for the majority of kind of the dieta, and then um, the ceremonies are held at night for ayahuasca, and for San Pedro they're held during the day. So the first night I actually got my own personal one-on-one ceremony with, well, one-on-two. It was Joel and his wife, I guess it is, who sings, and they do music together, or sing and play music together, to guide you on your journey. So I actually was in the temple by myself with just Joel and Sharon, who are kind of my two spiritual guides, which was one of the by far the best experience of my life, but also just incredible that instead of being with like 20, I mean, you can go on ceremonies where you're with 20 other people and you still pay, but you all drink together, which is fine. But to get a personal ceremony would cost a lot more, and luckily I just happened to be there on the right day and get them at the right time where I could get a private ceremony with Joel and Sharon. So the first night I drank the ayahuasca, and there's a big ritual that goes into the ceremony. It's taken very seriously, so they won't just give you the medicine unless they feel that you're ready for the medicine. So you really do have to follow that dieta. Talk to them before about any kind of issues you're having in your life, any kind of medications you might be taking. Make it so that you kind of are showing that you understand their culture and that the ceremony, that all of these steps matter. And really what they're doing is just setting you up so that they're casting away kind of any kind of, I would say, like evil spirits that might be in the environment or in the room. And a big thing with taking any kind of hallucinogen is set and setting. So I think that one of the reasons why it's so powerful is, one, you're in Peru, so you have that whole culture of the environment in Peru, but then you also have the fact that the music and the language and the people that you're with are all Peruvians. So you can just really feel like that Peruvian vibe while you're there. Even though while you're on ayahuasca, your eyes are shut the entire time, you get this feeling of like the history and the environment that you're in and the sounds around you, that you can just really like almost feel like you are a Native American and you're living like thousands of years ago when um, kind of these cultures had started. And really, ayahuasca dates back to what's called the Chavan culture, or Chavan dynasty, which predates the Incas, which is really cool. And just so you can see, I actually do have some Chavan art that I had bought when I got to Denver from a Peruvian artist. So this is an example of Chris Dyer's Chavan art style, and you can see kind of the eye here and the eye here. This is called a fishbone, and art is very big in Peruvian culture, mainly because of ayahuasca. It's a very creative medicine and can bring creativity out of you. So a lot of people get messages and will sometimes, I mean, Chris even runs ceremonies down in Peru where I talked to him, where they actually drink the ayahuasca and paint to try and kind of get the messages from the spirit world, and they go through their body and onto the canvas or the wall or whatever they're painting. So it's really cool stuff. And if you look in a Chavan culture, it was very big into art. And what else was really cool about the Chavans is they were around for a really long time, and there was never any weapons found. So it showed that this was a peaceful civilization where they would use the art to scare away their enemies. So they would have these dark mazes built out with tunnels, and that would lead to their village, but nobody would ever go to the end of the tunnel because they were too afraid. So that was their way to kind of stay in this one section of kind of the Andes region of Peru, but never be discovered and kind of last for a lot longer until eventually the Inca Empire took over. And everyone, or most people, know the Incas were a war civilization, and really they were big on battling, and they killed a lot of people. Let's put it that way. So they were kind of the complete opposite of the Chavans. The Chavans were more your peace, love, happiness, kind of the hippies of Peru at the time, who really had these intricate gardens and abilities to make all of this amazing like potatoes and grow all of these great crops and really thrive for I mean, I'm not sure how long they existed, but I'm pretty sure it was over 1,000 years. I mean, it was a good amount of time that they lasted. So I mean, I'm not sure what questions people have. I know not everybody could catch this live session. I don't want to kind of go into too much detail. I want to keep doing these live sessions, and maybe try to get some things and ideas into writing and kind of put those out. But really, I need your guys' help to help me on what you want me to talk about on these live sessions. What questions you have for me. Do you want me to talk more about the Inca Trail, in my experience and who I met and kind of stories from my travels? Or do you want me to go into more detail on ayahuasca and San Pedro, or kind of any other spiritual practices that might be going on in Peru? Just feel free to drop any kind of questions in the comments, or post it in this group at any time. There are Peruvians in this Facebook group who would be willing to answer either the questions for me and I can get you the answers, or would just answer straight up in the Facebook group. So just, yeah, feel free to post, comment, like this, and share it with all your friends so we can get the message out. Really the key message that I really want to spread is really going to be around mental health and addiction. And what I'm really trying to do is bring people down to Peru, but mainly run it as more of a non-profit, and really anyone that's going to be participating in a ceremony, kind of take that money, and the person that I'm working with is actually running a charity for that local village, that local Andean town. So I'm trying to get as many people to go visit that Andean town to bring more people there, which is thus bringing more money into that local economy and helping that local Andean town, just so kind of people have an idea of kind of how poor this town might be. They just got electricity a few months before I had arrived there, and at the time, even with that electricity, they had one refrigerator for the entire town. And I would say the town probably has, it's not huge, I would say maybe 50 to 100 people. But I mean, think about that. So they can't refrigerate food for about, like, you can't feed 50 people with refrigeration, with one refrigerator. So it's really just, that's more that refrigerators for kind of the tourists who are going to be coming in and participating in any ceremonies. But some of the supplies that we're going to be buying with any money that is donated, or when anyone does participate in a ceremony, we're going to be taking that money and kind of buying things like beds for these families, toothbrushes, medical supplies, water, refrigeration. Maybe we can get some more light. Eventually, we would want to maybe even bring like internet to, or cell service to this town. So we have a lot of ideas, and we have the charities actually already set up in Peru, so I can get people kind of the details on that. But that's kind of the main mission, and what we really want to do is not only help the Andean town, but also help people from around the world that are suffering from these addictions and mental health illnesses, that are taking lives every single day, that I feel this medicine could really help. And I think the word's just not getting out enough, where I talk to some people that have never even heard of ayahuasca, and they don't even know what it is, and they've never even heard the word. So I just feel that's wrong, and I think that it needs to be spread, and people in the United States should have the access to this kind of medicine and this alternative healing method for their addictions. I've personally lost 2 friends to overdoses, and I know that if I could have taken them down to Peru with me, I think I could have really helped them work through kind of any issues they were suffering with, and really help them in a positive way. So all help's appreciated. Like I said, I'm going to keep doing these live sessions. I hope everybody can join in and join the conversation, like and comment anything that I'm posting in this group. I really want to get the engagement up, so Facebook understands that we have a mission and we have a message that we're trying to spread to the world. So if anybody can help in any way, please do, and look forward to staying in touch. And again, just post any questions you have in the comments below. Thanks, guys.